Hello and welcome to another episode of India and Global Left. If you are new to the show, please hit that subscribe button. Also consider becoming a YouTube member, a Patreon, or donate small amount given in the link in the description box. Without further ado, let me welcome our guest tonight, Professor Mohammad Marandi. Professor Marandi teaches at University of Tehran. Professor Marandi, welcome back to India and Global Left.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure being on your show.
I wanted to start by asking you about the massive event in Iran today, the International Quds Day celebration, which mainstream Western media has totally blacked out. And given the uh, landslide change in public opinion regarding Palestine in the West, it's quite perplexing that it has been totally blacked out. So, if you could tell us a little bit about the significance of this day, the last Friday of Ramadan, and what happened in 1979 with regards to Palestine. Um, and it has come in the middle of a war. What is the significance of all of this?
As I'm sure many of your viewers know, ever since the revolution, Iran had a national series of solidarity with the Palestinian people. And it takes place on the last Friday of Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan. And before the revolutionaries were always supportive of two key foreign policy issues. One was, of course, the resistance in Southern Africa and the support for the resistance against apartheid. And the second was Palestine. And the Shah had excellent relations with both the Israeli regime and apartheid South Africa. So after the revolution, we had this. In every year, we have a major gathering of people in support of Palestine across the country. It's not just in one city. And this year, it was extraordinary. Under missile fire, under airstrikes across the country, tens of millions of people were on the streets. And in Tehran, they bombed the International Quds Day demonstration. So I have to add to what you said. The Western media has been completely silent about it, about the rallies. But it is also completely silent about the fact that this Epstein coalition bombed the rally in Tehran. And one of the demonstrators, a woman, was murdered. You would imagine that this would be the top news story. Excuse me. You would imagine that this would be the world's top news story, that millions of people in Tehran gather under the threat of airstrikes, and then the enemy carries out airstrikes and murders and wounds protesters. This is extraordinary. It's unbelievable. The same Western media that lies about Iran and says that the Iranian police gunned down peaceful protesters and that sort of nonsense, they allow their overlords to bomb the demonstrators in Iran, and in order to hide it from the international community, they ignore the entire story altogether. And I think this is just another clear example that the West is not just demonic, but that its media is just as much captured as the state by the same oligarchs, by the same Epstein class. So today was another day where the West has been exposed and where the Iranian people have shown their courage, and they've shown how steadfast they are in the face of aggression and in support of the Palestinian people, because this is really what constitutes Iran's sin, that Iran wants to be independent and that it supports the oppressed, in particular the Palestinian people, but also the people of Cuba, Venezuela, and others that are under the boot of Zionism and imperialism.
Talk about the significance of all of this coming after the strike in the school of Minaba, where 175 girls were murdered, burned down, and given Palestinians throughout the genocide have faced similar or even worse things. Press TV in Iran says that there is a touch of an element of personal resonance with many Iranians about what has been happening in Palestine. Talk about the significance of this.
Well, that has always been the case. Iranians have always been very sympathetic to the Palestinian people. And of course, there's always a small minority in Iran that supports the West, that has been supporting the West for decades. And we saw them in the riots. Some of these people accompanied the terrorists who were gunning down police officers. Foolish young kids for the most part. But even those young kids, even those kids, their worldview has changed. Their worldviews have changed. I have my own anecdotal experiences, and so have colleagues at my university. 3 students from my faculty have contacted me during this war period, during the first few days of the war. And all 3 of them were involved with the riots. They were not, excuse me, they were not among those who were using weapons or had guns, but they were on the streets in the excitement, probably doing foolish things. I didn't ask them what they did or anything like that. But the 3 of them, and a couple of them, 2 of them were quite emotional. The 3 of them wanted to know what they could do to make up for what they did. They wanted to help. And I advised them to speak to like certain people to see who can help them find a way to be helpful to the country. And other professors and other colleagues have also, well, some of them have given me examples of their own. So the mood has changed among even that minority that has been under the influence of Western propaganda. The West has united ordinary Iranians in a way in which I have not seen. Right now, they're bombing Tehran as we speak. I don't know if you can hear it, but they're bombing the city. So people recognize the young people who were deceived by the West through their Persian media empire that exists in Western capitals, where billions of dollars a year are paid to these so-called Iran experts to do propaganda against Iran. But in any case, the Iranians have overwhelmingly been supportive of the Palestinian people and the Palestinian cause. And what we're witnessing today in Iran is a taste of what was done to the Palestinian people. The U.S. and the Zionist regime have been bombing. Today, they bombed the U.S. bombed a storage full of medicine and dry milk in the city of Hamadan and destroyed it. They know what they're doing. I mean, these are terrorists. And they've been bombing hospitals and schools and all that, as you know. And of course, I should also stress that the heroics of the Lebanese is beyond belief. And the Israeli regime is trying to do to Beirut and southern Lebanon what they did to Gaza, because Hezbollah and the resistance are struggling against the regime in order to stop the genocide in Gaza. So we must always remember the heroics of Hezbollah and its supporters, and those in Lebanon who support it. And we should also all keep in mind that the Al-Qaeda government in Syria wanted to intervene over the last couple of weeks, over the last few days, on behalf of the Israeli regime and attack Hezbollah, but it was threatened by the Iraqi resistance. And also they were informed that Iran will fire missiles to their Al-Qaeda and ISIS leaders if they make such a move. So everyone has been exposed. Everyone has been exposed in this region. The fake supporters of the Palestinian people, like Qatar and Erdogan, the fake representatives of the people of Syria, the Al-Qaeda leaders, and of course the barbarism of the United States regime and the Israeli regime are on full display in Iran, especially as today they bombed Tehran and bombed the demonstrators, murdering a woman demonstrator. So even though these are very dark times and painful times for all of us, but in order to bring about change in this world, you need awareness, and awareness across the world is being created. And the Americans and the Israeli regime have made a big mistake. They've picked a fight with the wrong country and the wrong set of people. The axis of resistance has great faith in their cause, their religious beliefs are stress on the importance of supporting the oppressed and standing up against the oppressor. Their role model is, of course, the prophets, and but in the case of the story of the grandson of the prophet Muhammad in the plains of Karbala is something that resonates among all Iranians and all people of the axis of resistance, and that gives them a particular strength to stand up against these atrocities and the crimes being committed against people across the region by the Epstein axis.
One of the most impressive things about Iran has been its leadership, and I'm being very serious about it. I have been following their behavior, their talks, how reasonable, well-reasoned they are. They have been in many years, but now they are also showing how defiant they are. And today, I mean, Pete Hegseth has been telling us that Iranian leadership has been cowering and hiding. But today, in the Quds Day, we saw President Pezeshkian out there without any security. We saw Ali Larijani, the head of the Supreme National Security Council. There was the foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, and also, if I'm not wrong, the Supreme Court Chief Justice, Ghulam Hussein. Talk about the spirit of defiance that we are seeing in Iran.
Well, Dr. Larijani, I think just a while ago tweeted, and I think he's someone who people should follow. The president, the head of the chair of the Supreme National Security Council, Dr. Larijani, the Speaker of Parliament, Dr. Ghalibaf, the foreign minister as well, and the foreign ministry spokesman. I think these are people who should be followed. But Dr. Larijani, the chair of the Supreme National Security Council, tweeted to Hegseth that our leaders are on the streets, your leaders go to Epstein Island. And this is the difference between us and them. Our leaders are from the people, they're from among the people. And that is how it should be. That is how what our religious and cultural beliefs are. That was what the revolution was all about. We did not want some Shah who amassed wealth for himself and his family and was an agent of foreigners and was a coward. But we want leaders who stand firm and steadfast in the face of aggression, and to support the oppressed and to stand up against the aggressor. And that's what we have. We have different leaders with different views. We have different politicians and different political camps. But in general, these are the principles that we admire and we expect our leaders to have. If they don't have them, we don't want them. And that's what makes the resistance, the axis of resistance in Iran unique. And I don't say this because I'm Iranian. I don't say if Iran was like one of these other despotic client regimes bound to the United States, I'd be standing against it. But Iran is the hope of humanity, and the axis of resistance is the hope of humanity. And it is extraordinary how, beyond the expectations of people across the world, they've been able to, for the last 2 weeks, beat back the evil empire, despite their sheer brutality. And of course, people across the region, their hearts are with Iran, and the resistance across the region, they too are steadfast, whether in Lebanon or in Iraq or in Yemen or elsewhere. But we have not escalated yet. If things escalate, then you will see that we will take this to a much higher level. And our ability to confront the empire is enormous. But we want to end this war with victory, but also in a way in which the global economy is not destroyed. We want the world to be able to continue so that continue to thrive, if we can call what exists in the world today thriving. We want the economies of people across nations across the global majority to thrive. And we should all remember, Iran did not start this war. Iran was negotiating. It is Trump and Netanyahu that have brought about this catastrophic situation. And people in India, in fact, should keep in mind that the Israeli regime is sacrificing their interests. The Trump regime is sacrificing their interests and the interests of the American people in this war. If it wasn't for their illegal actions, their murderous actions, the slaughter of children, the murder of our leaders, the destruction of schools and hospitals, if it wasn't for this, the price of oil would be what it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, 4 or 5 weeks ago. We have to fight, and we have to defeat the enemy, because this is an existential war for us.
The other important event, if you like, was we saw the speech, the written speech of the new Iranian Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei. He, of course, I went through the speech and it was quite impressive. He talks about his own personal loss and the use of the phrase he has considered his own family's martyrdom as being sent to caravans of martyrdom. But he has also spoken about the Palestinians, about the heroic resistance and support that the Yemenis and the sacrifice in Lebanon. He has spoken about the need to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. He has spoken about the mood of defiance and how Iran should continue to punish their enemies, about talking about revenge. If you could tell us a little bit about your assessment of the new leader, and what were some of the things perhaps that struck you in that written speech?
I think one of the things that he said that I found to be very important was that during this week, when we didn't have a leader, and we had that, in accordance with the Constitution, that 3-man council that led the country was calm. And it was the people who preserved the state. Every night they'd come on the streets, during the day, like we saw today. But at night, every night they'd be on the streets across the country, under missile fire, under airstrikes. And the armed forces, within less than an hour, began their retaliation on the first day, and have been carrying out attacks against the Trump regime and the Netanyahu regime throughout the last couple of weeks. I think this is extraordinary. The West always lies, Western media, because they're captured. It's the Epstein class media. They lie and say the Iranians are against the state. We had no leader. And a number of senior figures in the armed forces were martyred, along with the leader. Yet, the country was quiet and stable, and people were struggling to help the armed forces and the government and the state to stand up against the enemy. I think that was a that's a key point that history will remember. Another, I think, element in general that I think is important is that the Iranian constitution works quite well. The West, in its Orientalist mode of thinking, looks down upon the rest of us, and all other models of government are inferior to theirs. And we are just dependent on individuals and like despots and that those Orientalist stereotypes. Our constitution is very sophisticated. And it has worked for us for 47 years despite the most intense antagonism. 47 years of brutal sanctions, 47 years of war. 3 wars were imposed upon us, and in all 3, the US was involved directly. During the last months of the war, which Saddam Hussein started with Western support, where they gave him chemical weapons to use, the West became directly involved, and they downed an airliner, they destroyed ships. Then, of course, less than a year ago with the Israeli regime, and now. Terrorism, constantly supporting terror groups. The last was a couple of months ago where they killed hundreds of police officers and ordinary people who were protecting the streets. And of course, countless, about 1,000, more than 1,000 innocent, well over 1,000 innocent bystanders. They terrorize Iran. They wage war on Iran. And they impose sanctions, yet they fail, and the constitution functions in a way in which everything runs smoothly in the most critical time. So that shows the sophistication of the Iranian constitution, the constitution of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and it shows where people stand. I think we are going to have, with a new leader, based upon his message to the people, which I think people should read. It's on his Telegram channel, Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Khamenei's Telegram channel, and his Twitter account, and probably elsewhere. I don't know. That's all I've seen, these 2 accounts. People should read it. And I think it is a sign that we will have continuity. It is a sign of self-confidence, the self-confidence of the Iranian people and the axis of resistance, because we are on the side of truth. And we are standing up against evil.
I wanted to pick up on something you said during the course of this interview, that Iran has not yet escalated to the full extent. And the new supreme leader said that studies have been conducted regarding opening other fronts where the enemy has minimal experience and where it would be very highly vulnerable. Your thoughts about some of those possibilities?
Well, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not privy to this sort of thing, but obviously Iran has already shown that it has many cards to play with. And if you take into account the fact that the Mossad and the CIA have already miscalculated big time, not only with regards, and US intelligence, not only with regards to the fact that Iran has responded by striking US targets in the Persian Gulf, something that Trump did not expect, which shows that their intelligence is no good, but also with regards to Iran's missile capabilities. The Mossad and the Western intelligence agent, the media, that Iran has a certain amount of missiles. And back then, I was always saying that these numbers are nonsense. And now we're seeing that they are nonsense. The Iranians are firing missiles at US bases and at the Zionist regime relentlessly, and drones. And there's no shortage. So they should take these statements very seriously. They know very little about Iran's capabilities, and Iran's intentions, as we've already seen, and therefore they should take such statements very seriously.
I wanted to ask you about your speculation about a possible ceasefire, even though we haven't seen any signs of that from either sides. But analysts are saying that the United States and Israel are on the back foot, given the economy in the United States that have been in very bad shape even before the war, thanks to tariffs and also decades of predatory finance capitalism. Should inflation, interest rate hikes, etc., etc., and also we must note that returning of the body bags, because CENTCOM has just verified or acknowledged that all six that was crashed, not gunned down, but that was crashed in Iraq, are dead. These are U.S. soldiers that are dead, and as they would continue to come back to the United States, the opposition would grow bigger and bigger, given it already began as a very unpopular war. If the U.S. blinks, what would be some of the conditions that the Iranian side would impose? People are now talking about reparations. People are also talking about eliminating some of these bases in the Persian Gulf. What could be some of the conditions, if you could speculate a little bit?
Well, any agreement will have to include Iran's allies in the region. That's for one. The second is Iran will have to be assured, not by a piece of paper, but it has to be assured by facts on the ground that its security in the years to come will not be threatened. And Iran will demand reparations. These tiny Arab family dictatorships in the Persian Gulf, they assisted the United States in carrying out these atrocities. They will definitely have to pay. I don't know the details, but I think it's clear as day that the Iranians are going to be relentless in making sure that its security and future is not threatened by the United States, and that the facts on the ground are as such that it can feel confident that its demands are met.
I want to close by asking you one final question about one of your talks about India going kind of viral in India in particular, where you criticize the Indian government for effectively having shot in their own feet by aligning with the Zionist regime. Obviously, and I have spoken about the Indian government's position not reflective of large parts of India, even though a segment of India obviously goes with them. If you could spell out a little bit about your criticism and what was your response about that going viral even in India, which also reflects that a lot of people in India, within India, it struck a chord. Your message struck a chord.
Yes, I think it's very clear that Iran and India and Pakistan and the subcontinent, we all have a heritage, a mutual heritage. We have a civilizational heritage. We have a cultural heritage that is mutual, and it should bring us all together. And the Western Empire has worked hard for centuries to divide people across the world. And in the last century, they've succeeded in dividing the subcontinent and West Asia in many different ways in order to preserve their hegemony. That's clear. And India has had a tradition of being opposed to Western domination, and they had their own struggle of resistance. And this, of course, is something that India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh and the subcontinent share together. And in past decades, the Indians continued to take a stance against empire. And of course, the divisions between India and Pakistan, and these are, I want to put those aside. The interest of Asia, the people of Asia, is for all of them to move closer to each other. And what the West wants and what the Israeli regime wants is to divide Asia. And in recent years, the Indian government has moved closer towards the Israeli regime, an apartheid racist regime doing what to the Palestinian people what the British did to the Indians, but worse. Of course, there are instances in India's history which are catastrophic. So for us, it is quite unexpected that the Indians would move so close to such a regime. But the Israeli regime cares nothing about the people of India nor anyone else in the world. Not only that's clear because they're supremacists. They see themselves as uh, the chosen people, and the rest of us are all Amalek, including Indians. And right now, the Israeli regime is sacrificing the interests of people across the world through this war. They don't care about economic problems that may be caused, or an economic crisis that may be caused that could ruin the economy of India or the rest of the world. They don't care. They'll sacrifice the interests of the Indian people without thinking twice. It's not a question for them. So I think that the Indian government has made a mistake in moving so close to an entity that does not care about India or anyone else. And I think the best thing that the Indian government can do is to distance itself from this regime in order to force it or to put pressure on it to end these endless wars. And it's in the interest of the Indian people, because India is a country with different religions and different communities, and its neighbors have different religions. And if India is seen to be on the right side of history, the Indian government, then that helps bring Asia closer to each other. It helps benefit the lives of everyone, and it marginalizes those that want to disrupt the global economy in order to impose their supremacist worldview on the world.
Thank you so much. This should be played over and over again in India and perhaps in other parts of the world. This was very good. And Professor Marandi, thank you so much for your time, and wish you more power.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hi, my name is Ayushman. I, along with Jyotisman, have started this platform. In the last 2 years, we have tried to build content for the left and progressive forces. We have interviewed economists, historians, political commentators, and activists so far. If you have liked our content so far and want us to build an archive for the left, I have two requests for you. Please do consider donating for the cause. Link is in the description below. Also, if you are not able to do so, don't feel sad. You can always like our videos and share our videos to your comrades. Finally, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.